What a win for the Steelers. It's a victory Monday. Best team they've played all year, and they beat them. Go on the road and beat them. And now Mark Kaboly in with us for the remainder of the show. And he's brought to us by Bet365. And Mark also brought to you by the injury lawyers of LGKG. LGKG, Western PA injury lawyers for over 90 years. I'm trying to think of the last regular season game that got me this jacked up. And it just hits me. It was Kenny Pickett beating the Baltimore Ravens on the touchdown pass in the waning moments to Najee Harris. Mm-hmm. He showed he could go on the road, beat the Ravens. And my thought was, if you're a Ravens fan, you go, oh, they got another one. Seriously? Mm-hmm. We just got rid of Ben. They get this kid come in, and he's clutch. And that was the best I've ever felt about Kenny Pickett. And then we saw how everything went, and Matt Canada, blah, blah. That one felt good because it's not a game where you say, oh, they did this wrong, that wrong, this wrong, that wrong, this wrong. It's not a game against a subpar opponent that they had to squeak out. No, this was a 7-2 Washington team at their place with a rookie phenom and a really good head coach. So for me, it's one of the more memorable and more important Steelers regular season games in recent memory. And Mark, before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, what was that crowd like? Because we had someone call in and say it was 75% Steelers fans. That sounds a little high. Yeah. What did you see with your own two eyes?
It was probably about 50-50. The problem was they threw those burgundy towels in there, and they thought that was going to be the big counter of the terrible towels. Never did they realize that they're sitting in red seats. Everybody's wearing red or burgundy shirts or whatever they call
jerseys.
Jerseys, that's what it is. And the gold of the terrible towel just sits out, so it stood out so much more than it should have. It was just a total failure of going with the burgundy towels here. They're going to have to – I mean, all these teams I've been to so many road games, and everybody breaks out their version of a towel, and it just doesn't work. Saying that, it was probably 50-50. There was a lot of people there. I said this on the pregame show yesterday. The only stadium you go to, or at least I can recall you go to, and it's not that type of a swing of Steeler fans, is Baltimore. That's at Baltimore. If you're looking 90-95% Baltimore fans, that's probably what it is. Other than that, it's pretty typical of what we saw there.
Was it loud?
Not really. That place is a dump.
It is. I was saying that on Friday.
You told me on Friday that's the worst turf that you ever played on.
Worst in stadium ever.
And it's 2024, and guys are still falling down.
Yep.
The broadcaster going to half said guys are going to need to change their cleats. How? I don't understand how that happens. But it's not a big deal. Everyone came away healthy, and I don't think the injuries the Steelers did suffer had anything to do with the turf. All right, Mark. One key takeaway. What was your biggest takeaway out of that game?
Well, that's a tough one. There's so many takeaways you can go with, but I would have to say the acquisitions of Mike Williams and Preston Smith paid dividends right away with very few snaps, and now you don't have to spend the next couple of weeks questioning why they would go and get a guy like that. So I think to be able to bring quality players, and especially when you look at a guy like Preston Smith, where you're going to need him now moving forward with Alex Highsmith. I saw him in the locker room, and he was on crutches, and he looked like, everybody saw the injury. It doesn't look promising.
No.
So I think the takeaway was, first of all, being able to come back to like that with down 10 with maybe a quarter and a half left.
Yep.
Plus who was able to do it too. They took away a lot of stuff, man. Normally if that running game would happen like that in any other game, they would lose. But they stuck to it, man. They only averaged, 3.5 a carry, if that, but they ran the ball 42 times. You don't see that very often. So it was, I hate this cliched here, but it sounded like a team win. Everybody really, really took part in this victory, from the head coach all the way up to the GM down to the punter.
Thoughts on the fake punt and the timing of it?
I love it.
Me too.
At that point, I don't know how they showed it on TV because I haven't been able to watch it back yet. You saw it, and when they motioned in like that, James Pierre was out there within 35 yards. And he said after the game, we've done this so many times in practice this week, and I caught it every single time. I don't know what happened here, so I don't care what part of the field that was at. I don't really care. You're a professional athlete. The ball is wide open, and you drop it. I mean, if it in hindsight's 2020, it probably makes a big difference in the game if they do just punt it away. But I would do it again. I totally agree with Tomlin. Do it again.
And I buy that when he says it. Like I think you are going to see more of that going forward.
Boy, he's changed, huh? He's
Yeah.
letting it all hang out, huh?
Yeah.
Which is good. I call him like the George Costanza right now, doing everything opposite of what he normally did.
Well, and you know what it is, and Dorin, you brought this up earlier. You say, hey, you still have faith even if it doesn't work, that you can win the game. And I think that's him having a ton of faith. And yeah, his defense maybe hold him to a 3 if you fail. Or Russell Wilson is going to win us a game, and he has faith in Arthur Smith. And I don't think you would think, hey, we want to steal possessions back when it was Kenny,
Yes.
back when it was Trubisky.
Yes.
But now we're going for the jugular now, because even if we fail, we've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback that we've got faith in. Okay, we can screw this up and still go out and get the victory.
Yeah, Mark, I felt like that was a statement like, hey, we'll spot you 7. If we don't execute this, we'll spot you 7 points. We still feel good about winning the game.
I don't think they – I mean, you're more of a special teams guru than me, right? You played it your entire career. That's not saying, hey, we're going to go and run a fake punt. And they're going to say, if this guy comes in, this guy's wide open, we're going with it.
Yeah.
If not, we're kicking it. So
Right,
it's not like
right.
he said, fake punt on one, ready, go.
No, they saw something during the week in
Yes.
practice with the Commanders. Like, if this guy does motion in, hey, we have a check where Killebrew, you're going to throw it.
I noticed right away, as soon as you motion in, 99 out of 100 times, Pierre comes in with him.
Right.
I mean, then he doesn't.
Right.
Then you're looking like, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. And that's the case.
I think that, Dorin, you made the best case for why it made sense now for a second time on the show. It should surprise nobody that me, Adam Crowley, the eternal pessimist, hated it, because I live in my fears. Because I think about, oh, God, you got Killebrew throwing to James Pierre. That's a guy who shouldn't be able to throw to a guy who really can't catch. So at the 15-yard line, I didn't like it. But I do hear your guys' points. And I do think the team loves that stuff. Like, oh, we're going for it on the 15-yard line? We came here to win. I do think that kind of thing resonates, and you can't downplay that.
This is not even a play that was contested. It's not like this had to happen, this had to happen. Only thing that had to happen was whoever the gunner was out there comes in and he was going to block it. I mean, you're
Did you see them work on
open.
it? Did you see them do that in
I've
practice
seen
this
it.
week?
They've been doing it a lot.
Yeah.
But it's just briefly. Yeah, but you see it over a couple of weeks here. But, I mean, back to your original one of your points about Tomlin letting it all hang out here, and he's going for it. Now this is the big key coming up now, because he normally holds it close to the vest
Yeah, he
of
does.
Baltimore.
Oh,
now,
great
if he
call.
lets it go there, then we got a new Mike Tomlin on our hands.
That's a really good point.
That is a good point, because you know how Harbaugh is too. They're going to try to play that guessing game with each other. This is the absolute coaching matchup. I mean, we know that, and they're so close in their career. They're basically the same guy. But this on Sunday, it's going to be like, all right, who's going to outsmart the other one, or who's going to try to outsmart the other one, and the other one's going to actually play conservative and not try to get outsmarted. Like it's going to be a chess game.
Yeah, because I look at this, and usually Mike Tomlin is thrilled to drag the Ravens into a rock fight, and typically Harbaugh outthinks himself. I don't think that's how you beat the Ravens this year. I think you got to throw the ball. Cincinnati threw it 60 times. Now, I'm not saying the Steelers should or will do that, but you might have to put the ball in the air 40 times, because they're not just bad, they're abhorrent on the back end. And if you play it where you're going to run the ball more than you throw it, I think you're playing into Baltimore's hands, because they can stop the run. You got to throw and score points to beat Baltimore this week. You're right, Mark. This is a big tell on how much Mike Tomlin has changed this year.
I hope it is they throw because they want to, not because they have to. You know, you get down, you have to match them score to score, have to match them score to score. I hope that they don't try to deflate the ball and minimize possessions.
Agreed, because they, quote unquote, had to throw in the second half in this game and didn't.
Yep.
You're down 10 points midway through the third. Usually you're airing that thing out. And they just kept running the football.
Mm-hmm.
They kept running the damn ball. I think it's encouraging. We've talked about this a bunch this morning, Mark. No tackles, no sacks for T.J. Watt. Lose the turnover battle. Fumble on the goal line. Screw up a fake punt. still won the game.
Yep.
I think that's the mark of a good team. Obviously you're not perfect.
Look at Kansas City. Finds ways to win.
Yep.
Detroit last night played awful for 3/4 of that game. Found a way to win. And it's at some point do you look and say, okay, they're just getting by, they're scraping through, or, hey, we got something here. I'm at the point where it's like, they might have something here. This just does feel like a different team to me right now. But these next two games in 10 days are very important where they go from here. But I think they might be onto something.
How about
here.
that? That's like Eeyore got laid.
I mean, honestly.
What?
What?
You walk in here, you're like Eeyore. Oh, woe is me. Oh, the Steelers aren't that good. Now you're saying they might have something.
I think they might have something right here. I mean, like I said before, the George Costanza effect. Do everything opposite, man. Instead of saying with Justin Fields, you're going with Russell Wilson. You're bringing in Arthur Smith. You're playing offense rather than relying on your defense. Denny Smith's doing well. I mean,
do you think Mike Tomlin is operating this way because of the message from above, or just because of him?
That's a good question.
It's a really good question.
I do not know this.
That's a Marconi question.
I don't think that Art would say, hey, you got to do this, and this.
He did say urgency in the beginning of the year, and they did resign Mike Tomlin, but
now it's working now, so it's easy to do it now.
It's not. I don't think it needed to be explicitly stated. Like Art says, hey, Mike, here's how you got to operate. But they fired his coordinator mid-season last year and got rid of 2 quarterbacks, and the words, at least publicly, were urgency, and you got to win a playoff game. So if Mike doesn't get the message through all that, he ain't going to get the message. And it does look like he did. You bet your quarterback at 4-2, who had done some really nice things, you got a different goal in mind. It's not just let's make the playoffs and win football games. No, let's go win the division and then see what happens. That's a good question by you.
Marconi.
Marconi. He might have said, hey, Mike, here's how we got to go about business. But I'm guessing that it was unspoken between the two of them, and Mike's just understanding the situation.
I mean, Art could just be like, listen, Mike, I have full faith in you and full trust in you. Go for it. Like, if it backfires, then fine, we'll live with it. But just go for it. I have trust in you to make all the decisions, but just be aggressive and try to go for it whenever you make these decisions. I could see that conversation.
And if there is a decision or that talk did happen, it probably happened in February.
Yeah, back in
it's nothing that's recent.
No.
They're saying this is how we're going to approach it. So this is how we're approaching the free agency, and this is how we're approaching our attack. I mean, bringing a couple of those coaches too, Zach Azzani and Tom Arth, and bringing in Arthur Smith.
Arthur Smith's done a great job.
You can't really sleep on that. And and what you're seeing now from Arthur Smith is now he's getting more and more comfortable with what he's doing. So I don't know. I don't know if they're quite there in the same conversation as Chiefs. I'm not a big Bills fan because I think the Bills are a one-trick pony. It's a pretty impressive trick, but I think they can be beat. But you're looking at the top 5 team in the NFL right now, and we'll see. So can't complain of where you're at right now. I like it.